So what is it about disagreeing that is really so disagreeable? A lot of that goes back to the families that we grew up in. Every family has its own ways of doing disagreement. Some families really don't allow it at all, and if you disagree with the person that you're not supposed to disagree with, then the punishment comes down. And sometimes it doesn't come directly, it just comes indirectly or later. You just know you're going to get it if you say certain things. In some families, disagreeing is against that unwritten list of rules that every family has, but no one could really describe it to you because one of the rules on almost every family's treaty, the family treaty is what the family therapists call this, one of the rules on almost everybody's family treaty is that the way that we do things is just the way it should be done. There's really no need, if you're a person who's decent, to write these things down because you should just know. And any violation of the family rules or the family treaty makes a person feel dread and guilt. Even if you're a grown-up and everybody who could enforce this treaty is gone, still, they got to you early and you learned it. And even if you have insight due to therapeutic work or writing or however you learn things about yourself, it still happens that you feel guilt when you break the family treaty. And as I said, most family treaties have the unwritten, of course, sort of like an asterisk by every rule which says, this is the way things should be done. The way our family does things is registered with the International Bureau of Standards as this is the way you put up the Christmas tree, and this is the way that you handle money, and this is the way that you handle disciplining children, and this is the way that you handle contact with the extended family, and this is the way you keep your house, and this is the way you go to school, and here is the way that you... I remember my parents, I think I told you this already, having an argument when I was in 11th grade trying to slog my way through a lot of reading. And it was a friendly argument, but it was like, Maggie, just read the first and last sentences of every paragraph and you'll be fine. No, Donald, that's wrong. She has to read the first and last paragraphs of every chapter and then she'll know what's in the book. But no one in the family said, just read the whole book. That was not part of it, oddly enough. So in every family, there are rules about what is sayable and not sayable, what is noticeable and not noticeable. Can you say, Mom's passed out again, or do you have to say, Mama's not feeling well? And if you partner up in a family like this or marry into a family like this, you will transgress the treaty because, of course, no one knows anything like to hand you the thing in writing and say, this is how we do it in this family. So the first time you transgress the family treaty, you know you have done it because the temperature in the room just drops and people freeze like bunny rabbits. They don't really usually gasp, but they might as well. He looked at Aunt Ethel and said, she's bald. I don't know what was not allowed in your family. Anger is one of the things that's covered by almost every family treaty. Usually there are a couple people in the family that are allowed to be angry and the rest of them aren't. And if you were one of the ones who wasn't allowed to be angry, you could tell because even as a grown-up, the person will say, I'm not angry, I'm hurt. Or I'm not angry, I'm just frustrated. So, if you don't handle money, discipline, drinking, anger, food, affection, conflict, power, loss, embarrassment, the way that your partner's family does, which you never do, every partnership or marriage is a cross-cultural partnership and marriage, You have a sense somehow that your partner is fundamentally wrong. Not just mistaken. There's something wrong with them. And not just wrong, but a little bit dangerous. I remember feeling this the first time. I had my husband was from California, and his family valued being comfortable. And my family valued being adaptable. You know, if you could sleep on a chair in a railroad station, that meant you were a good person. But when my husband turned the air conditioning on one day and then turned the heat on that very night, I found myself horrified at a level I hadn't known existed. What is wrong with him? Nothing. So disagreeing is something that's covered in your family treaty, and some families are really comfortable with disagreeing, and they do it noisily, even at the dinner table even, or in the car or on the bus. And you know, you come to dinner, you go, sorry I was late, I got caught on 35. You know how it is to get South Austin on 35. Oh no, you went wrong. You know, you went the wrong way, you got to go Lamar. Oh no, Ethel, that's wrong. You never do Lamar. You know what I'm saying? Disagreement, okay in that family. If you ask for directions on a bus in the land of Israel, I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I have. You say to one person, excuse me, how do I get to the Knesset building? And they say, well, you get off at stop 36, and then you go down this road and take a left, and someone behind you that you don't know and they don't know will go, no, you're telling her wrong. No, she'll get lost in bad neighborhood if you do that. And because people speak in all kinds of accents in Israel, because everybody's from somewhere else. But nobody kind of zones out, because you might get blown up at any minute. So everybody's really awake. And everybody cares passionately about what they're telling you if it's wrong, and they'll correct you. And then they'll pass you the cucumber that everybody's had a bite out of, and you can, you here, have a bite too. Very nice. So some families are very comfortable disagreeing, and other families don't disagree. And some families, you could disagree kind of sideways. And disagreeing sideways is something teenagers do sometimes, where you go, come on, you got to be on time for this. So you got to leave now. And the teenager goes, whatever. That's sideways, whatever. They're not like, no, it's not important to meet me on time. My friends, 15 minutes either way is fine. That's in our treaty. I don't care what's in your treaty, because I'm making my own treaty now because I'm a teenager. You don't say that. You go, psh. That's the W for whatever, in case if you're over 50. And some families will shame you if you disagree. They'll go, oh, well, that's just foolish. Or they'll say, oh, you don't think that. As if a person of your obvious intelligence and caliber would never have a thought like that. Something must be wrong with your mouth. I don't know. It just came out, but I know that thought was not in your head. You're much too intelligent for that. And some people disagree without even really... They disagree while pretending to agree with you. You're talking and they'll go, And you learn later that means I see your mouth moving. You just said something. In my family, you disagree with somebody and then they would start talking. And they would talk at you and quote Bible verses. And so they'll quote enough Bible verses and they'll go, oh, Maggie, no, it says in Luke 14:31 that you da-da-da-da-da, and it says in Isaiah 14:97, no. And then they just talk for so long that you finally just agree to get a little peace. I don't know how they did it in your family. Sometimes they call names like, oh, you're so emotional. Or, oh, there you go, being all logical again. Or, that is just so rigid. You're too rigid. Oh, you're so new agey. We can call names. Some people disagree really quietly. I knew one family where it was just done by the mother with a sigh. So you'd say something and the mother would go, and the whole family would jump up and kind of rearrange everything. I knew one family where the dad did it like this. So see, if you weren't in that family and the dad went, you might not know that you were in trouble. But you were. Okay. A lot of us come from very different cultures in our families, and I come from my family's culture, you come from your family's culture. We try to do something together at work or in a partnership or at church, and we have this kind of cross-cultural experience where I'm doing something my family's way, which is, of course, the right way to do it, and you're doing something your family's way, which is so wrong, but I want to be polite about it, and usually, if you're lucky. And so we have this experience on a committee together where each one of us thinks the other one cannot be actually serious about the way they are going about something. And so here's what I want to say about disagreeing passionately and peacefully, that one is just to know that everybody comes from a different family culture and that they are doing things the way they were taught is the right way to do things. And that since you're doing something different, they feel shaken at a place that's pretty deep inside them. And they feel almost endangered by the way you're doing it. See what I'm saying? Because you're not doing it their family's way, therefore you're dangerous. And they would never say that out loud. They would never say that with their adult self. But way down in here, they're quaking a little bit because you're so wrong. And they're trying to keep it together. So churches have conflicts. I just want to tell you that. And I know that this church has had fairly destructive conflicts. And I also want to tell you, that does not make this church unique. You are unique in many other ways. But so don't worry. But every church has conflicts when you're trying to get something important done and when you have a bunch of human beings in there breathing in and out. You're going to have conflict, and it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Even if you're doing it right, you're going to have conflict. Know what I mean? Just think back. Rabbi Jesus, was he doing it right? Yeah. Did he have conflict? Mm-hmm. So anybody who thinks that if I were really doing this right, I would float through my entire life and never have a fight with my sister and never argue with my husband, and I would never even be irritated with my Uncle Jim, who is in the NRA and thinks Rick Perry is too liberal. So human beings have conflict. That's okay. And that's good to know. It's good to remember. It's good to know human beings disagree. Disagreement is not an attack, even if you were taught in your family that it was, and that unwritten rule thing. It's really not an attack. It's just a disagreement. You really don't have to let your anxiety skyrocket over it. It's just a disagreement. It doesn't mean the world is ending, and it doesn't mean your family's falling apart. It doesn't mean your church is falling apart. It's just a disagreement. So, the first thing to do after you remind yourself that conflict is natural and that it's just a disagreement, you take a deep breath, because breathing is really important. You would think you wouldn't have to say that. But when people get stressed, they breathe very shallowly. You could tell. Or they just hold their breaths. And when you're holding your breath or breathing shallowly, then there's not good oxygen getting to your brain, and you're likely to do something stupid. More oxygen will help you. You might do something stupid anyway, because Lord knows we all do. But at least you'll have oxygen in there while you're doing that. So breathe in, breathe out. Then name the situation. Like, wow, this is really a hot topic. Or, my goodness, we're really both feeling strongly about this. Or, this is a difficult situation. You all aren't doing this, but at the 9 o'clock service, people were almost scared when I started talking about this. I could tell because everybody was like this. And so you just say, wow, this is a scary topic even to be talking about. You're not really sure what I'm going to say. Are you in good hands or not? I think you are, but that's just me. So acknowledge the kind of situation that we're in, and then try to stay focused and clear. This might just be my bias toward logic, so take it for what it's worth, but I think that you should stay on the topic at hand once you figure out what the topic at hand is. So you might have the disagreement. You have the content of your disagreement. Here's what we're disagreeing about. And then you have the manner of your disagreement. You have the process of the disagreement. Did you disagree correctly or not? Are feelings hurt? Is the building burning? What is happening? And so if you try to deal with the content of the disagreement and the manner of the disagreement at the same time, you're going to get confused and overwhelmed because you're dealing with too many things. So pick one and stick with it. And don't be going, well, if only you hadn't blah, 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 we wouldn't be in this situation. Okay, maybe that's true, but it's completely useless for forward motion. Completely useless. If you feel unnerved because someone thinks differently from you, you may want to ask yourself, did I grow up in a family where closeness and sameness were the same thing? Where we had to agree on our senses of humor or our tastes in music. For example, in my family, I grew up, classical music was the thing. That was it. Classical and very fine jazz. So my dad had this enormous speaker, and he would put my crib in front of the speaker and crank up Bruckner symphonies. And my mother said, Donald, you're going to make her deaf. And he was like, nonsense, look at her, she loves it. And so Kaya and I were at their house recently, and so classical music is still the thing. And he was musing about how it was interesting to him, fascinating, that people in the Arab world did not have an affinity, it seemed, that the Western classical music was not popular there. And it was just interesting to him that certain people just did not like classical music. And I said, to flip as always, which gets me in trouble, I said, oh, Daddy, nobody likes that music. Nobody gasped, but almost. You know how it was. Everybody kind of went, ah. And then one of my half-sisters said, oh, well, studies show that 12% of people like that music in America. And so I was able to say, oh, okay, I stand corrected. But what I was really thinking was, yeah, that's what I meant. So you can be close without being the same. You can have different tastes. You can have different political parties. You can have different ways of doing things and still be close. If you find yourself thinking, you cannot possibly think that, then it's time to take a deep breath and get to where you can understand how they could think that. You with me? So if you have someone who thinks that Newt Gingrich is a fine fella and he'd make a great presidential candidate, and some of y'all may think that, and that is fine. That is not the case in my family. So if I met someone who thought that, I would have to say, I am going to work on seeing how you got there. Another thing to do when you're in a disagreement is to start from the position that there's more than one way to do things. There's more than one way to do things, really. And there's more than one way to do church. There's more than one way to sew. There's more than one way to decorate, to save money, to eat food, to drink. There's more than one way to put up a Christmas tree. There's more than one way. So you just begin from that premise, which is huge. Long way to peace in that premise. Now, also, be as specific and concrete as you can be when you're asking for a change. I was a couples counselor for a long time. I know you can probably tell. And had a guy and a woman in my office, and she said, I just want a little more love. And a word like that is very general. It's not very specific. I want a little more support. I want a little more love. I want, whatever. It's a general word. So I said, tell me what that would look like for you. And she said, I would get kissed when I come home from work. And he was like, baby, I kiss you. She was like, oh, yeah, on the cheek. Yeah, that's not a real kiss. All right, we're getting somewhere. I said, what kind of kiss would you like? She said, I don't know, I want a kiss, a real kiss. I said, well, tell me about a real kiss. And she said, it's on the lips for one thing. I said, okay, can you do that? To the husband, yeah. All right, how long a kiss do you want? She thought, at least 5 seconds, 5 seconds long. Can you do that? Sure. All right, so now she's got more love in her life. And he has a happier partner. It's all good. I have an aunt and uncle who argued for years, according to the family stories, about big family versus small family when they were young. I want a big family. I want a small family. I want a big family. I want a small. Finally, somebody said, what's a big family to you? Well, I was raised in a family of 4 kids. I think a big family is like 6. What's a small family to you? Well, I was raised in a family of 13. A small family is like 6. Not all disagreements are solved that easily. But getting to the specific really helps. A good question when you're in a disagreement is, what would happen if? What would happen if we tried this? What would happen if we tried that? You're not saying, let's try this, because that's scary. You're going to get a lot of pushback from that. There's a mule inside everybody. I don't know if you've noticed. There's this mule inside everybody, and what you want to do when you're actually trying to communicate, not when you're trying to be right, but when you're trying to actually communicate, is you just try not to wake up the mule. And let's do this wakes up the mule. Instantly the person's like, ah! What would happen if doesn't wake it up as much? Or I wonder what would happen. See what I'm saying? Okay. For example, you could say to your teenager, what would happen if you were to speak to me respectfully the whole day before you asked for the car keys? Wonder what would happen then? Of course, they might, learn that too and go, wonder what would happen if you weren't such a jerk. That's not really a fair way to do that game. Same thing with I statements. You tell people about I statements. You say, when you do this, I feel bad. Nobody does them right. Everybody goes, when you do this, I feel like you're a jerk. Like, yeah, there was the word I in there, but that's not what they were talking about. All right, ask questions. Asking questions is a fabulous thing to do when you have conflict. Stephen Covey says that thing about seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. Same thing. Ask enough questions and you might actually get to the actual nub of the disagreement, which might not be as much of a disagreement as you think it is. And a good question to ask is, help me understand how you got to this position. Help me understand what this means to you. Help me understand what is mysterious or unnerving to you about your position. Is there anything? Because I'll tell you there's something unnerving to me about your position. It's this. So help me get past this. I don't understand how you could do this. So if nothing works, if a person is very, very difficult to deal with, know that they are not just difficult for you. Most people who are very difficult to deal with are very difficult for lots of people to deal with. And that's a whole nother sermon about dealing with difficult people. But usually their behavior is way out of proportion to whatever problem you're having. And usually all the things that you try for good faith conversation don't really work. And so what one of my favorite scriptures, which is called the I Ching, says to do in this situation is they say, if someone is behaving incorrectly, wait until there's a window open between you where they seem to be listening, and then say your piece. Say it one time. Don't be like the extroverts in the world who believe that just a few more words is going to help. You say your piece one time. They're not disagreeing with you because they don't understand what you said. So further explanation isn't going to help them agree with you. So many of us think that. If you disagree with me, my goodness, it must be because you didn't really understand what I said. But no, they can really understand what you say and still disagree with you. That's good to know. So what the I Ching says is wait till the window of influence is open and then say your piece one time and then don't keep harping on it. And if the person continues to behave incorrectly, that's just a translation of the Chinese word. It's incorrectly. It's an odd way for a Western mind to think about this, but I like it. If the person continues to behave incorrectly, then you disengage from that person. You just sort of give them a timeout or give yourself a timeout. Just disengage without a lot of emotional, you don't have to have a lot of emotional turmoil or stories about what's happening or they're a bad person or I'm a bad person or a lot of turbulence about it. You just go, oh my goodness, this is really not the kind of behavior I want to be around. And so I disengage and then re-engage when they begin to behave correctly again. And this is a really tricky, almost impossible part. Re-engage without what they call bringing a lawsuit against the person, which means giving up hope that the person can change. If you can re-engage with some hope, still protecting yourself, but some hope that the person can change, that makes you 100% saint of the world. So nobody can do it, but we try. So what is correct behavior? It's different in every culture, and so this congregation has parsed it out in what you all call a covenant of healthy relations, and many people worked on this, and y'all voted on it, and this is what we agreed to when we become members of this congregation, is a covenant of healthy relations, and it's got a whole list of how we want to behave with each other. We can change the list anytime we want to if we talk to each other about it, but here's what it says about disagreements. It says we want to keep communications with one another direct, honest, and respectful, And then y'all went further and made it harder. Direct, honest, and respectful in a spirit of compassion, love, and trust. So we communicate directly, respectfully with one another. So if somebody gives you a problem, you don't go to somebody else and say, man, they're really giving me a problem. It's like that, because that person will say, have you talked to this person? You're like, no, because it's just so much more easy and fun to complain about them to you. In a spirit of compassion, love, and trust. That makes it hard. And the other thing it says about disagreement is we make our church a safe place to express our deepest fears and our greatest joys. And it says we forgive each other and ourselves when we fall short of expectations, showing good humor and the optimism, this is not bringing a lawsuit, the optimism required for moving forward and calling ourselves back into covenant, the covenant of healthy relations that we made with one another. And so we remember our principles, that each person has the right to freely search for truth and meaning, and each person has worth and dignity, and we try to walk our talk. And I'm going to sing you a song that you can sing to yourself if you want to, about whoever you want to sing it about. And the words go like this, and it's very easy to learn because I'm going to sing a part and you sing the same thing back to me. The words are, you may be one last spark we all need to light the whole world. So let's try it. You sing what I sing. You may be one last spark. One last spark. We all need to light the whole world. To light the whole world. Yeah. Okay, so let's practice. We're gonna sing it for ourselves first. We'll go up a little higher because that was a little too low for y'all. You may be one last spark. One last spark. We all need to light the whole world. To light the whole world. Yes. Now we're going to practice singing it for somebody we love. So you get somebody in mind. Here we go. You may be one last spark. One last spark. We all need to light the whole world. To light the whole world. Yes. Now we sing it for somebody about whom we are neutral. We could kind of take them or leave them. So don't look around. But pick out somebody you're kind of neutral about, somebody you don't even know. Now we're going to sing to them in our mind. You may be one last spark. One last spark. We all need to light the whole world. To light the whole world. Final exam. This is a person you have a resentment against. If you can't think of anybody, pick out a TV preacher or a journalist or a politician or somebody. Got somebody? Again, really important not to look around at this point. You may be one last spark. One last spark. We all need to light the whole world. 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 Yeah. Please rise.